smart people often suck at business. And if you were an inventor or a scientist and you're trying to create a startup over a good idea, this is going to be a really, really helpful conversation for you. At Black Ram TV's podcast, Gaining Ground, my name is Daniela Siggia-Beasant, and I am your host today. And I'm a consultant, and I do a lot of consultants for businesses. I'm very active in the advanced materials space, so I deal with a lot of very smart people that are scientists and come up with really great ideas, let's say. And then that will inevitably turn into a business as they try to sell their idea. I work with some people that have patented technologies, so highly, highly intelligent people. And the reason that they bring me in is that they are smart enough to see their blind spots. But there are a lot of very, very smart people that don't see the blind spot. And so they approach their new startup or their business with the same mentality or bureaucratic thinking they used to experience if they worked, let's say, at a university. Or if they worked for government in some kind of research. It's a completely different mindset and approach as you will experience in the private sector. So when you get people coming from nonprofit or coming from institutions like education, for example, and then they try to get a foothold in the free market, they will often meet with difficulty. And they will look at everybody else as wrong, but not realize it's their actual approach that is undermining their success. So today what I'm going to do is outline for you some of the three biggest things, the three biggest mistakes I see idea people make when they're trying to turn their idea into a business, especially as you start to get successful. So tip number 3 you're going to need when the money starts actually coming in. And this is where the big mistake that's made, that is why so many promising companies will go under right at the point that they're actually making money, is when they will actually fail. So that's a very important one. So please hang on till the end, because when you start making money, you're going to want to remember this conversation. Okay, so first of all, science people, right? Science or idea or education people that are coming from institutionalized places like education facilities, bureaucratic environments, nonprofit environments. That's a very bureaucratic process. Things take time, a lot of make work projects, overcomplicating reports. There's a lot of things that happen that are exalted in that world that just doesn't fly in the private sector. And the problem is when these idea people go into the private sector, they try to fix, quote unquote, fix the private sector by bringing that bureaucracy into their world, into their business world. And that pulverizes the opportunities for them. And that is because the way you approach science, the way you approach development or technology is very different than the way you build business, than the way you market your business. And often what you think people would want to invest in or why they would want to invest in you is not the reason investors invest. So if you're approaching it off the mark in a different language than they want to hear, then it doesn't matter how right you think you are, you're not going to see money from these people. And when you don't understand the importance of PR, because you're so interested in, let's say, your research, which is very important, but if you don't look at marketing and you don't look at PR and you're not building your brand, then again, you're not going to see money. Now, I know in the advanced materials space, like in graphene, everybody wants to invest in graphene right now. It's really, really hot. And there are a lot of companies that are literally doing nothing, that are getting tons, multi-million-dollar investments because graphene is in their brand, and they do such a great job with branding that, everybody's throwing money at them. And then you have other organizations that are doing quality work and amazing research, like world-changing stuff that nobody knows exists, and they are struggling, paycheck to paycheck, some of them working for free, not even getting paid, because they didn't worry about the brand at the outset. They were so busy working on the tech, they didn't care about the brand. So now that they finally worked out the kinks in the tech and they're ready for the world to embrace them, the world doesn't know they exist, and the world is a very loud place and it's hard to get anybody's attention. You should have been building that from day one. And then I'll have clients, for example, where because, like, for example, in science, you're very conservative in your language in science because you want to be very accurate, you want to be cautious, right? So there's a little box that your communication brain gets put into when you're a scientific person. So then when you look at your marketers that are really hyping up what you're doing, it will make any scientist quiver. So then what happens is you start pulling back on the marketing and not allowing your marketers to say things and really, putting constraints on them. And then you say, well, marketing doesn't work. No, your kind of marketing doesn't work. If you would just let me use my expertise, so I'm good enough to run federal election campaigns, but not good enough to create an ad, for whatever tech you're creating, because you're scared that the ad looks too good. You know what I mean? Like, are you kidding me? You want your ad to look good. I have, for example, I'll give you a quick example. I had to do a piece of marketing material that was showcasing a product. And one of the things that they were claiming was some results they got from a tribology test. So I was focusing on imagery that showed the end product in a really dynamic, beautiful way, right? Where they thought, well, we should take that picture out and instead put a picture of the tribology machine that we used to do the test. So nobody cares about the machine that did the test. They care about the results, buddy. They care about the product. That's what you're selling. You're not selling a tribology machine, and if you can find me a hot stock image of a tribology machine, sure. But that low resolution, blurry one you gave me, and when I put them side to side and say, okay, now look at this one. Now look at the one that you asked me to use. Look at the difference. It's ugly. The one you want me to do looks horrible. No one's going to want to invest in that. Yeah, but that's the machine we used. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But when I'm dealing with somebody that has those kind of, blinders on, they don't understand marketing and they don't understand what's appropriate or not in marketing. So anything that is dynamic and wonderful makes them nervous because they're used to looking at white papers all day. So to look at, dynamic advertising, that's out of their field of expertise. Yet they'll give you an opinion and tell you how you should do it, even though they don't know how to do it. They don't even believe that it's worth doing. They're only doing it because maybe their CEO told them they should. So, and actually that's the big tip. Your tip number one is, if you're an idea person and you're really good at your tech, but you don't understand business, you have a lot of philosophies, sure, you'll have a lot of opinions, but they don't make you money, right? You're not attracting money. Then what you need is a good CEO. And you need a CEO that has vision, not just a CEO that's good at math, right? You need a CEO that has vision, that understands building a network, that understands building relationships, that has a vision for the growth of your company, that has a vision and the ability to create partnerships in your network that are actually fiscally viable, right? And that will help build opportunities that aren't just good ideas, but that will actually generate revenue, because idea people are great at making partnerships with other idea people that are also broke. So, you're living off your good ideas. Good ideas don't pay the bills. So a CEO understands that, hey, maybe this ITB we're going after, or this proposal we're putting in, it may not be our dream research, but you know what? That's going to fund us to work on the dream research. So science idea people don't understand the importance of revenue and cash flow. So they don't operate putting that first, right? So, like, for example, there was another client indirectly that I have, and they had some tech that they had a glitch on their tech that they had to work out, and they had a deadline. And they kept pushing back the deadline because for them, slow and steady wins the race. And, oh, well, it's not perfect yet, so we're not going to pursue it. We'll wait till next week and work on this other stuff. And it was their CEO that stepped in and said, no, you were given a deadline. You're going to meet that deadline. You're going to do it. I've seen other situations where the CEO will say, we should do this event, let's say. And people within the organization will poo-poo it because they don't have his vision. What are we going to do this for? It's a waste of time. We're busy and whatever. And then Bud, puts his foot down. No, we're going to do it. And the next day they're on the cover of Business News just because they did that event. So the best thing, the smartest thing that you can do as an idea person in business is to find yourself someone who's fantastic at business and make them your CEO and then let them do their job. When they choose a marketer, let the marketer do their job. If it's making you uncomfortable, look at why you're uncomfortable. And before you say that what they did was wrong, understand, is it just because you're stuck in a box? Then maybe it's better just to not look, let them do their job, and you focus on what you have to do. And, one of the big things is when you do appoint that CEO, like I said, is to let them do their job. Because if you're constantly running interference on everything they do because you're uncomfortable outside of the science box or the bureaucracy box you come from, you are undermining their success potential and you're setting them up to fail. And when you start to look at sales, there's another mistake that idea people make. Where, for example, when you're looking to get someone to sell your product and what you're doing is you're looking for tech knowledge, right? Well, let me tell you something. A good salesperson has to be highly intelligent. So if they're highly intelligent and great at sales, I can guarantee you they can learn whatever tech you need them to learn enough to sell the product. They might not be an engineer like you or a PhD like you, but they can learn enough of the big words to sell the product that you have to the people that know what words they want to hear from a salesman. Right? That's why when you look at a lot of pharma sales people, they're gorgeous. They hire model looking people. They don't need them to be PhDs, right? Can you memorize these words and you're gorgeous and you're personable? You will do well in pharma sales. You don't need to be a doctor to sell pharmaceuticals. And that goes with any kind of tech or any kind of good idea that you're trying to sell. So what you're looking for are people that are great at sales. Instead, what idea people do is they only respect other idea people. So you will be more impressed with a candidate that has a few letters behind their name than someone who's fantastic at sales. And you're going to say, but they're going to know the tech inside out. Knowing tech inside out is useless if they can't sell it. So what you want is people that know how to sell, that can learn just enough of the tech to be able to make that sale. But so you want to look for personality more than when you want to look for technical knowledge when you're building your sales team. But idea people don't do that. So what you end up doing is you build a team that is useless. You will surround yourself with other idea people because you're comfortable with them and you like how they speak and you guys can all talk about the same inside the box stuff and then just die broke, right? Or you can build a team that can do the things and think the ways that you are incapable of, that will push beyond the boundaries that you are surrounded by. So you have to have a great marketer, you have to have a great CEO, and then you have to let them do their job. One of the biggest mistakes I see in companies, and this is now we're getting to the big, takeaway of the day, is a team will only win if everybody plays their position. I'm going to say that again. A team can only win if everybody plays their position. And the problem is when you have a startup in the beginning, it requires everybody to do everything. And if you're, the lone practitioner of your business in your little startup and it's just you, then you are the CEO, the tech person, the business development person, the sales person, the marketer. You are all of the things. And even as you start to grow, if there's 3 or 4 people in your team, 2 or 3 people, again, you're all doing a little bit of everything, which in the beginning, that's what startups are. And that's what you have to do. You grin and bear it and whatever. But eventually you'll get to the point where money starts to come in, and then you're all so used to the same routine, you start to operate your business when it's busy the same way you did when it was dead in the beginning. So you're all stepping on each other's toes and tripping on each other. And what ends up happening in these situations is that resentment builds and interpersonality issues come up. And by this point, because to get your business, especially a startup, to the point where it's making enough money and you're busy enough that everybody's scrambling and running all over each other, you've probably been through hell and back together. And you should say, well, that should bode for a strong relationship. But sometimes by the time the good stuff happens, the relationships are frayed and everybody's nerves are shot. And there's a lot of baggage from what you went through to get your company here. And maybe the position that you fell into isn't where you really see yourself. Maybe you want to do something else, it's a different role in the company now that it's growing. You're not happy where you are. Maybe the person that has a different position than you don't think is doing a good job. And so, and maybe you've been hiding that. And then there's a lot of things that everybody's been holding in and not saying to each other because they don't want to hurt feelings, because everybody feels this tension brewing. And that is why right 5 minutes before the miracle where a company is about to take off, that's when a company will fail. It doesn't happen week 1 of the startup. It doesn't even happen year 2, year 3. It happens year 4, year 5, year 6. Where by that point, everybody's exhausted, it's tired, and yeah, it's starting to pay off, but the damage is done. So then what ends up happening is you sabotage your success by, for example, if you have your business partner that you're mad at and you guys are chasing an awesome opportunity, I've seen people sabotage the opportunity just because they don't want their partner to get the credit for bringing that to the table. I have seen people that will burn their house down before they, will give the acknowledgement or the respect to somebody else that's done something good. They would rather sink the ship than give credit to the partner that maybe even brought them this opportunity in the first place. I've seen this time and time again. Or money starts to flow and people get greedy. I have seen that get sabotaged a lot. I've seen, some people, they really, the techies will say, when they value, we're looking at investments, let's say somebody's coming in and wants to help them get a product to market. And they'll say, well, this commodity is a $10 billion thing and my idea is so great, so I want $18 million. And it's like, well, how did you come to that number? You haven't had a sale. You don't even have a product ready yet. Like, why 18 million? Like, where did you get that? It's only going to take you, let's say, 500,000 to get to market, which is what my job is as an investor, is to help you get your idea shelf ready. That's going to cost 500,000. Why would I give you 18 million? Because in your mind, one day it might be worth that. You know what I mean? So this is where techie people really get in the way. Or they're scared to make money. So they finally do have an opportunity show up and they get intimidated and sabotage it because it's bigger than their little brain can comprehend. So if you're starting to feel uncomfortable by some of the growth that's happening around you in your business, that might not be that the growth is bad, but it could be that you have a scarcity problem or that you have a mindset that's very limited and you will end up sabotaging your success. If you have people on your team in your startup that have complexes like ego issues, inferiority complexes, or things like that they're dealing with, when money starts coming to the table, you're going to have a problem. These people are going to be a problem for you. So you need to make sure, in the beginning, you're desperate. So you're desperate to accept anybody willing to come to the table with a little bit of help, especially if they have a little bit of money. But, 5-10 years from now, you might regret that decision. It might have been better for you to scrape by a little bit more and not accept partnership by certain people because their scarcity mindset or their ego issues are going to end up sabotaging your opportunity. I've seen situations where, somebody is working on their self-esteem, let's say. And there's right now a big thing that we hear in some circles is insisting on taking up space. They say this to women all the time. Make sure you take up space in the boardroom. Make sure you're heard. Make sure you interject yourself in conversations. And that's really hurt people, because that's true maybe if you, let's say, don't speak when you should. But don't just speak for the sake of taking up space in a meeting if you're not bringing anything of value to the table. So I've seen many a times being in high stakes meetings where a big deal could go down and somebody's trying to, close a deal, and somebody else on their own team will interject and sabotage the conversation, or bring the conversation, distract from the moment, and they just killed the opportunity for that person to close because I had to take up space. I want to be heard, and the things that they brought into that conversation weren't helpful, factually incorrect sometimes, or like I said, derail a close. That's the worst thing I've ever seen. But I've seen that, and I've seen it a lot, not just once or twice or in certain situations. I've seen that happen a lot. Or I've seen techie people in environments where they could be networking in a way that is beneficial, and they're completely clueless. Or they're so busy talking about the tech, they don't talk about the deal. That's another big problem that I see. So one of the best things you can do is sometimes to shut up. If you see you're about to close a deal, your CEO's working on something, shut up. Now's not your time to be heard. Be heard when the deal's not closing. That's something. Then be heard. Be heard if you have something to say that provides value, but not so that you can make yourself feel better that for 5 minutes people were forced to listen to you, who probably are sitting there saying, why is this person talking? Why do I have to listen to this nonsense? It is not helping me. It's not a question I asked. So why are we talking about it? I don't even think that's factually correct. And now you've undermined your whole company. But you got heard. So these are the things that I see that really hurt the success potential of companies that have a lot of potential. And it really all comes down to one thing, and that's ego. Ego. Smart people have a lot of ego. So nobody does it as good as them, right? Nobody understands this the way they should. Nobody's investing for the reasons you want them to. Nobody, understands the tech as deeply as you wish they did. And that is frustrating. People don't, in business, they don't have the same bureaucracy as they do in nonprofits. So then you think business is wrong because in your mind, in some ways, they do less. However, they get a lot more done, don't they? And sometimes make a lot more money, right? So maybe you don't have it all figured out, and you should let people that are good at their jobs do their actual jobs and not get in the way. So the smartest thing you can do as an idea person in business is understand that in business, you're probably not that smart. So allow people that are smart at business to work that side of the business. Allow them to do that. Find out what everybody's role is, and everybody stay in their lane. Don't trip on each other. Don't step on each other's toes. Everybody play their position, and everyone will do well. Go get them.